It is Wednesday night and the studio is open. You are in my studio and it is so open that I just ran from my sewing machine to the computer without changing my computer glasses to my regular glasses. These are my sewing glasses. So if I have trouble seeing comments, please understand it's a wrong focal distance, but it's better. It's better than nothing. So I have been quilting and it's great. I am working on, let me pull up a quilt. Let me share that with you. Share. Window. Okay, so I am working on a color block quilt. And I think I've just hit the halfway mark. So I've been sitting and filling in all of this background, which is absolutely fun and delightful. I'm trying to see how much thread I can put on this quilt. I really, this is a color block quilt from 2021, December of 2021. It's called Floating Star, and I used a dark blue, I believe it's a Dublin background, but I really wanted this to give off the rays of stars. And I knew that I couldn't use the loft of the batting to make the quilt special, because the loft of the batting, when you quilt and show off the higher and lower parts of the quilt, the parts that are quilted tightly and the parts that are quilted less tightly, those are shown off because of shadow, and shadow doesn't get cast on dark fabric. So I had to choose a lighter thread. This is actually a darker gray, but it looks light on the blue. So I really wanted to get some good texture in here, and I'm enjoying sitting and quilting it so much that I forgot to change my glasses. So let me come back and say hello to you. Let's see. Hi, I'm glad you're here. I am here too. And what's really fun about the way I quilt with bat scooters in the palms of my hands. They're on my website. They're called bat scooters. It's two pieces of foam. I put one on the palm of my hand and move the quilt around. Now I had a sudden meeting with a rotary cutter last Thursday and took off a portion of my finger. No stitches because there was nothing to stitch, but it's going to be a little while to heal. But it's great. I quilt with the palms of my hands and not my fingertips, because if I quilted, number one, I don't quilt with my fingertips because I can't feel all of my fingers all the time. I have some stuff going on. Arthritis and nerve damage and all that stuff. But I can quilt and not bump my finger. So it's been really a fun thing to do, to sit and do a lot of quilting while I'm not using my finger, because I have a boo-boo silliness. Let's see. You love the radiant quilting, and my red glasses are adorable. Thank you very much. I have cataracts, but they're not ready to come out yet, and I'm having trouble seeing. So I went and got sewing glasses made to the right focal distance and such. And I was going to just have boring glasses because I have other frames, unless they had something fun that was within my insurance coverage. And these were pretty close. These are really cool. These are Betsy Johnson, who I do like. My other glasses are hers as well. So she puts these little hearts on the ends of her glasses. They're just really fun. So I have fun with those. I can't really see what I look like in them because I can't focus that much. But again, I wouldn't know there was a computer if I didn't at least have these on. So I apologize if I'm doing a little weirdness on the reading. The radiant quilting is really fun on that, and it's going to be bound in gray scraps. So I'm looking forward to finish it. But I'm enjoying quilting it, so I'm not looking forward to finishing it because I want to be done with the stupid quilt. I'm actually having a good time with it. I do have a couple other quilts to baste up. I've already started piecing quilts for next week. Next week is 2 pieced quilts. So I hope to have this one out in next Tuesday's newsletter. And then next week is also the 1st of September. So that's a new cutie quilt with video on YouTube. And that is a new cutie quilt kit. And that is a new color block animal. And the animal's pink. I'll let you wander on that one. You feel your pain re the cataracts. Mine are ready to be removed, and I'm pretty happy about it. My cataracts, I'm glad yours are ready to be removed because it's just, I can't see. The doctor looked at my eyes and he said, your prescription hasn't changed, but you can't focus. So let's see what else is going on. And my disease affects my eyes and stuff. So he ruled everything else out, but the cataracts were very obvious. They're fed by steroids. And he was like, well, until you're on more steroids, they're not going to grow more. Enter my back problem. So I'm on a lot of steroids. Yay, face. And hopefully that'll feed my cataracts and get them out sooner rather than later, and I can start over. I wanted to show you something else. Let me pull up another picture. Nope, that's not the picture. I don't know what I just opened. That's not the picture. Let's go here. That is the picture, and I will share it with you. Here we go. So this is a recent quilt. I had fun quilting. I've been over quilting a lot. Whoop, sorry about that. Pretend you didn't see that. Nope, you don't know anything about that. There we go. So this is Jack's Star, and I made that for a baby Jack that is coming into our family. Jack's Star is a pattern I wrote in tribute to my father, Jack, and we have a new next generation in the family that is going to be named Jack. So I made this quilt for him. And what I realized is I never put a quilt kit online because I have this fabric. So I have the kit online at debbiebrownquilts.com if anyone's interested in reproducing this. It comes with the pattern. Let me show you what it comes with. Okay, I'm working on my website in little bits and pieces. So let's share this with you again. So here is my website, debbiebrownquilts.com. I have a quilt kit here. It's normally $72.50. I took it down to $60. And that will give you the Jack Star Cutie pattern, 16 fat eighths of Cosmo Urban Mist, which is the fabric line there. These are the grays, and they have that aqua green view to it. Gives you that background fabric, which is here, and binding fabric. So that all comes together for $60, and that's available on the website now. I just had never put that out. It's amazing. Having your back go out just makes you forget to do things. Let's see. I think I got another comment. You finished quilting your Radiant Star, but how would you attempt the same quilting on a long arm? Great question. I would draw the lines in on the long arm, the radiant going out from the center, and that's part of the video. I do all of my quilts on a home sewing machine because that hits more students, but I am a long arm quilter too. I've been long arm quilting longer than home machine quilting. I think I've been home machine quilting for 14 years, and I've been long arm quilting for 24, 25 years. What I would do is I would draw the lines first, and then I would load the top. And I would draw the lines in a semi-permanent way, a marker that's not chalk that's going to rub off. And then I would stitch those in, and I might have to stitch it here, roll up, stitch it here, roll up. It's kind of fussy, and I would work from the top down and do the background that way. It's a little fussy. You're going to have to work with the knots and rolling and such. It's painful. Sometimes it's easier to do things on a home sewing machine, not often, and there is bulk, but there's a lot of quilt to manipulate while you're quilting, which you don't have on a long arm, but this is just one where the distance isn't your friend. Some things people are like, oh, I just want you to quilt everything on the diagonal and as a long armer. You go, no, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't work. So that's how I would do it on a long arm. It's a little fussy, but you don't have the bulk to worry about that I do. On a home machine, I would sit down, pull up a chair, and get comfortable because you're just going to be doing a lot of that background. Now, you could do the backgrounds bigger. I just like small work. So, great question. Thank you for asking. Thank you very much for asking. Let me share what I did for how I marked it. This will be in the video when it comes out next week. Let me find the window. So there's the quilt. And here's how I marked it. I picked a center point, which was the center of the star, and then I started drawing lines that went from the center out to the seam. So it's the seam that comes down here, and then the center out to the next seam, the center out to the next seam, the center out to the corner, etc., etc. And I used, whoops, wrong way. I used a laser level to mark it because number one, I couldn't find my yardstick, and number two, the yardstick wasn't going to be long enough. So I pulled a laser level, had it angle between where it needed to angle, and then grabbed in my ruler and my chalk and marked it in. I will tell you honestly, because I'm always honest, I quilted my blocks first, and by the time I quilted the blocks, a lot of the chalk had come off. I did stitch all of the rays in blue thread first, just to keep them in there, just so I wouldn't lose track of them, and then I went back and did the gray. So I have the rays are stitched in blue, which was more work than you need to do. But what was I doing? I was just sitting there listening to garbage anyway, listening to books or podcasts or whatever. So I stitched all of that, and then I stitched a 1/4 inch on each side in the gray, and then I filled it in, and I'm just working my way around. And I'm having a really good time and trying to see how many cones of thread I could use, because who doesn't want to put $70 worth of thread into their quilt? I do. Let me come back and say hello. I finished quilting. Let's see. Could you do the diagonals on a sewing machine, then load it on the long arm? The answer is yes and no. You can, but you have to baste it really, really well and accept that you might get a few puckers on the back, because once you load it on the background, load the backing on your frame, it's going to move the quilt a little differently than it does when it's just smushed up on your machine. So yes and no. It's kind of I heard someone explain that every choice in life is about picking your yucky sandwich. You get to pick this yucky sandwich or this yucky sandwich, and you have to eat the sandwich. You have to eat one of them. Do you want to roll and keep making those lines, or do you want to worry about the puckering? One or the other is going to happen. So you get to pick whichever sandwich you can tolerate best. It's a crummy sandwich either way. Let's see. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, I'm not sure if it was the quilting or the laser level, but we do what we do. And I haven't been moving around a lot because my back has been kind of dodgy. It was a herniated disc, and I had an infection and just some weird stuff going on and a flare up. Basically, it was very unpleasant with my back. It takes a lot for me to call off sick. But I'm moving around better. But while I wasn't moving a lot, and I still can't stand very much, but I'm not gritting my teeth in pain at, pain level 9.5 all day. I'm just sitting and quilting, waiting for the time to pass until the back feels better. So it's been fun. The quilting, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm looking at it again, hypercritically, going, I could do so much more, but I wanted that quilt for getting me through this illness, for getting me through this season of life. I wanted something that was fun to quilt, something that wasn't really perfectionist, so that I am doing pebbles and swirls, and they're not perfect. I could have picked something better, but I just put 2 different designs together to have something big and something little. I can just sit and do this all day. And I think there's 32 rays on the quilt, so I make myself get up in between each one to not sit in one position too long, back injuries if you've ever had them. So it's worked out. It's been fun. That's what I'm working on. And next week, I've already started piecing the quilt for next week's Friday. I think Friday is September 1st. So I'll have a Friday release, a YouTube video. I'll have a premiere. And that will be probably like 10 or 11 in the morning, just so that I can get more coast in. So I will post it, and I'll let you know what time that is in the newsletter on Monday. And then the color block quilt, I'll probably tease it to you next week, but it won't, I will let you know. It'll come out again on Friday. And again, pink. So I'm having fun quilting. Flamingo is definitely on the list. It may or may not be this month's, but it is definitely on the list of what I want to make. But yeah, pink. No, I'm having fun. I do like pink, and I'm making a lot of blocks. And my quilt for my trying to open my drink. My YouTube quilt, my cutie quilt on YouTube, is very seasonal in the United States, in the northern hemisphere. Sorry about that. So let's talk about thread, needles, batting, and tension. Because I said I would go through highlights of different classes. I hinted with that floating star that I'm quilting that I just used a regular batting. That is Quilter's Dream Green, which is a green midweight polyester. And I am using that batting because the loft didn't matter. The loft wasn't going to be seen since the background is so dark. And I talk about things like that in thread, needles, and batting and tension. Because if I did that with a white quilt or an off-white quilt or a very light colored background, I would use wool. And the definition of the wool would help show, the loft of the wool would help show the quilting. So let's go to the next quilt here. So this quilt was done with one layer of wool batting. And this is what went out in your newsletter. This is in As the Bobbin Turns. This is the current entrance in As the Bobbin Turns. It's wool batting, and you can see where the feathers puff up and the background sucks down. The background reads flat because I quilt the background with a bunch of meandering. And I quilt all of the strips with ribbon candy. So there's a lot of tight quilting going on in this, and that's why the feathers seem to pop off the quilt. This is hanging off the side of my deck that I don't go on because it hasn't been rebuilt since two different trees hit it, 2019 and 2020. Still waiting to find a contractor that is convenient. We're not looking that hard. Anyway, this hanging off the side of my deck, and I wait for the sun to hit it because when the sun hits it beautifully, you get to see the loft. This wouldn't work if the background was navy blue, like it is on the quilt I'm working. So I talk about threads and needles and batting and tension because they all play into how your quilt turns out. And that I put together an entire class to show what I to give you different projects to make and different learning experiences and how this type of thread works, why you might choose to do that, why you do your needles this way. So let's go find that class and we'll talk through it. My basic classes are called Quilting Essentials. So I have how to baste a quilt, how to bind a quilt, first steps to free motion quilting. We've talked about those. I haven't seen this promo since I published the class, so that could be a couple years ago. So I think this is...
Hi, I'm Debbie Brown with DebbieBrownQuilts.com. Machine quilting is my passion, and I love to show quilters how to use any thread on their home sewing machines. I have a 10-lesson course called Quilting Essentials, Thread, Needles, Batting, and Tension. Instead of accepting, my machine doesn't like this thread, take a class and learn to choose the right needle for your thread, adjust your tension to help you achieve the perfect stitch, use a different thread in the bobbin than in the needle, and use multiple battings in a quilt. Enroll now, work through the practice sample projects, and prove to yourself that your machine does like those formerly frustrating threads. See you in class.
So those are some of the projects those are the projects that are in the class, and each of the projects has a purpose to it. Talks about when you're using the same thread in the needle and bobbin, when you're using a different thread in the needle and bobbin, when you're using a fussy thread that wants to break and what you might have to do differently. I give you a chart in there showing how to pick your needle to match your thread. So the patterns are a bowl cozy, a reusable gift bag, a landscape wall hanging, a notebook cover, a bracelet pillow, and a lingerie bag. The patterns that we work through are stars and loops, the pointed flower, sky texture, water texture, scribble meandering, swirls and loops, flowers, crested waves, cross hatching, and micro quilted switchbacks. These are the different threads we go through, from 12 weight to 100 weight, a couple different 12 weights, and unweighted threads. Here, over 2 hours of video will tell you how to choose the right needle for your thread, adjust your tension, showing you how to test your tension, use multiple battings, and the thread and needle reference charts I talk about. Um, and here is the curriculum. If you've joined the class, you can press any one of these and it'll take you directly to the lesson. If you haven't joined, it'll tell you to go join. So lesson 1, thread, needles, batting, and tension, how to take a test, test your tension and make a bowl cozy. And then I have for long arm quilters. Lesson 2, using bobbin weight thread, why I would use it, how to wind it, stitching a flower, and then the project is a gift bag. 60 to 80 weight thread, which is thinner than average. It's considered a bobbin weight thread, but you can use it on the top as well for applique and for free motion quilting. 40 weight thread, a little thicker than average. So here's a water texture preview. And this is what the class looks like.
I have a 40 weight cotton variegated in my machine for my water. I'm using an 80 weight polyester bobbin. I'm choosing the thicker thread because I want to have more coverage here, and a thicker thread will cover more. It will stand out more. But I really want more coverage, so I'm going to also quilt more closely together.
So that's what the class looks like. I'm going to stop sharing because I have to pull this up again. If I go backwards, it'll take you to my dashboard of where I write the class, and that's not where I want to be. So you can go in and find that lesson. I have that free for everybody. Am I sharing? I'm not sharing. Let me come back to you again. I mean to be sharing. There we go. Now I'm sharing. Someone had asked me if I had a water texture, so I put that on as a free preview. On my classes, I'll do that. If I don't have something on YouTube, I'll randomly put a random lesson on for free preview so you can check them out. So that's water texture, grass texture. A 12 weight thread is really thick. It's the thickest needle I can get through the eye of a sewing machine needle. So I'm talking about stitching leaves, and then this is some fun to stitch with it. The traditional metallic thread, the stuff that makes everyone throw their spool of thread across the room because it frays, tell you how to avoid that. And then as a really cool notebook cover. I lost my notebook cover because I left a pen open and it had a big ink stain, so I have to make a new one. Flat metallic thread is really fun. A lot of the kids, it's like tinsel. A lot of kids tie it in their hair because they like having shiny bits in their hair, but my gray hair takes care of that for me. But I show you how to stitch some fun in that, how to use invisible thread, which I will be doing on a future color block quilt as well. Lesson 9, using multiple battings and texture with 100 weights. So the multiple battings are in this lingerie bag right here, and that makes the bag puff. Let me see if I have a close-up picture. It really puffs because it's quilted down and then left up, quilted down and left up. There. Let's see if that's going to get larger. But it's a lingerie bag, but it has applique in it at my house. So those are that's what I go through to make you be really uncomfortable. Try threads that are hard, that you're a little uncomfortable using, possibly, because it's worth it. Whenever you look at a quilt and go, oh, I would love to use metallic on this, but my machine doesn't like metallic. I'm not comfortable using it. So if you make a little project that, you can throw away and start over if you hated it, or you can make more than one of them if you want to get more comfortable with it, get comfortable with the thread, and then it's in your toolbox as something that you can use. on your future quilts. Like I have a quilt I want to quilt up, and there's a thread I have an idea for it, but the thread doesn't. I want to quilt up with metallic thread, and now metallic thread doesn't scare me, so that's pretty awesome. Uh, look for that in the future. So that's thread needles, batting, and tension. I'm not sure if in the class I have a long arm thread needle and tension thread. Sorry, thread and needle. I can't remember right now if there's a thread needle chart in the long arm for long arms in the class, but if there isn't, email me and I'll send it to you. I don't put them on the same chart because the numberings are different. Whenever I'm a shoe person. Whenever I buy shoes, I normally wear a 9.5, but I got a pair of Louboutins last year, which are the red soled ones that are the stilettos, really fancy shoes. I got them for like $40 or $50 on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody didn't know what they had, like $600-800 shoes. In that shoe, I'm a size 40, but I'm a 9.5. But my feet don't change sizes when I wear Louboutins. They're just a different numbering system, and it gets confusing. So I don't put long arms and home machines on the same chart, just because the numbering system is different and it goes up a size just because of the speed of the machine. But I will certainly, whereas I specialize in home machines in the classes, wherever possible, I try to put in long arm information as well, because there's a lot of crossover from people who do both, or want to do both, or want to have the information. You can learn most of this information. Most of my stuff can be taught on home machines and long arms at the same time. So let me see what we have coming next week. Do I have my list out? Or did it fall on the floor? I think my list fell on the floor. So I'm not sure what class is next week, but I haven't. Oh, next week might be Build Your Own Edge to Edge. So I will be back next Wednesday night with another class review and teases and hints about what's coming with the new quilts, and then this quilt will be done. I will be back again Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 New York time, and be showing you what I have new out next week as well. So I have a lot of fun work ahead of me, and I love getting up in the morning and knowing that I have these 3 projects, one that has to be done for the newsletter and 2 that have to be done for next Friday, and it just kind of sets what I'm supposed to do every day. I was talking to someone who recently retired, said that they just don't seem to get as much done now that they're retired as they did when they were quilting. I mean, when they were working, just because the whole day's ahead of them and then suddenly the whole day's behind them. And I could do that because I'm kind of retired because I stopped traveling for 4 years, hoping to come back next year. But knowing that I have these quilts to get done to send out to you, it really sets my days, and it just brings me so much joy. So thank you. Thank you for following along and keeping me quilting. You are the bright point in my day. I can't wait to finish that quilt and quilt it too. That one's going to be fun. So thanks for following along. Stay in touch. Your newsletter should have come out last night. If you haven't opened it, please do so. There's information in there about sending quilts to Hawaii. I did mention in my newsletter that the Maui Quilt Shop is taking quilts for the families that were burned out. My heart is just sick with what's going on in Hawaii, just the devastation and the loss. I lost a house to a tree crashing through it, but I didn't lose a single personal property. Like, I think I cracked a toilet tank lid because that fell off and cracked. We didn't lose any personal property, and we didn't lose any people, and we didn't lose the entire town we were in. So it's absolutely nothing compared to the devastation that they've been through, and it was still really stressful. So my heart is so sick for them. Maui Quilt Shop is taking quilts to hand out to people who are rebuilding. And from my experience, because I have shipped quilts to Hawaii, check out the USPS flat rate boxes. I think the large flat rate box ships for $20. If you take a regular box and try to ship it, it may surprise you that it will go double that. So check around because it's very, very, very expensive to ship to Hawaii from mainland USA. I did go to the post office today while I was running errands because I needed some shipping supplies for the business, and I was able to just go and pick up some large flat rate boxes. So you may do that if you're in town, and then check the weight. And I can go online and see what it's going to cost when I put in the zip code and stuff. You might be able to figure that out, and it'll give you some ideas. So if that is something you want to support, and I know quilters have big hearts, I just wanted to prepare you for the shock of how expensive it is to ship to Hawaii. And that flat rate box shipping my friend a quilt when she was in the hospital in Honolulu. I was like, really? I was like, $18? Done. I was tickled. I could ship it next door or to Hawaii for $18 or whatever the cost was. So if you're interested in information about that, that's in the newsletter as well. Take care, everyone. I am going to go cook up more produce before the farm gives us another basket this week. Tonight is peppers and zucchini and garlic scapes and cabbage. It's a lot of stir fries are coming up. So I'm going to go throw that all together and empty out the fridge in time to fill it again with my weekly farm share. Then back to quilting. Happy quilting, everyone. Continue being the awesome people you are, and I'll see you again next week.